computer. That's usually the. All right. Well, welcome everybody. Welcome to the Dare to Be Strong podcast. I am your host, Erin McDermott. I'm a board certified holistic nurse, registered nurse in the state of Massachusetts for well over 25 years, but I left my conventional nursing job just a couple of years ago. I opened up my own fitness center, and I'm now teaching true health through educating and promoting real food and bringing more nutrients into people's lives, and also teaching people about strength training. That is my passion. Today, my guest is Doug Evans. He was the co-founder of Organic Avenue, which was the original juice bar in New York City, and also the founder of Juicero and the author of the book, The Sprout Book. He's extremely passionate about sprouts and how they can positively lead you to living a more healthy life. So Doug, one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on is because I am always so happy to see somebody who is thinking outside of the box in terms of health and actually showing how to bring more nutrients into the body and promoting it. Because my experience, unfortunately, as a nurse for over 25 years has actually proven that people are severely lacking in nutrients in their diet, which leads them to chronic illness. Whether it's through lack of health education, it's just really imperative that we bring knowledge of true health to the forefront and think outside the box. And I am on a mission to educate people about that. So I know you're passionate about sprouts, but can you talk to all of us as if we are not smarter than a fifth grader? What are sprouts?
Yeah, so Erin, I'm going to roll back just a little bit further, which led me to sprouts.
Yes.
So I grew up in New York City on the standard American diet. And by the time, I was 30 years old, I was about 40 pounds overweight. And between ages 30 and 33, I lost both aunts, uncles, and parents to chronic illnesses, which were, in hindsight, all lifestyle related. So my aunt got diabetes, metabolic disease, which led to heart disease and led to death. And along the way, they amputated both of her feet below her ankles. And at the time, I wasn't aware that there was 90 million people that were pre-diabetic. I didn't realize that 2 out of 3 Americans were overweight or obese. I was just looking at my own family, where my mother got stomach cancer and died. My father got heart disease and died. My brother became overweight, obese, diabetic, and has had 3 strokes and a heart attack. So anyone that says, I've got bad genes, they've got bad information, because the truth is, we all have genes, and through epigenetics and through our lifestyle and through physical activity, whether it's strength training or cardio training, you can shift your genes. And one of the truisms, and I'm watching this firsthand, with my baby, for the first 6 months, the baby grew exclusively from breast milk, just exclusively. We had no formula. She just grew. So she was able to synthesize, and she doubled in size. In the first 6 months, she doubled in size in both height and in weight. And all of that came from the perfect nutrition from, my wife, and through breastfeeding. And so when we think about, the baby didn't have to think about what to eat. When it was hungry, it ate. And, we now know that the saliva of the baby's lips on the nipple will trigger the composition of what the breast milk will be for what the baby needs. So it's really deep about what can happen, in that. But what I became aware of is that all nutrition for the body to assimilate, is done in a liquid form. So if you eat things that are non-liquid, bread, pizza, pasta, meat, fish, and goes into the stomach, the body has to break that down into a liquid in order to assimilate the nutrients. And that process of taking these acidic foods is generating more of an acidic environment in the body. And so before I knew any of this, 33 years ago, intuitively, with a little bits of people dropping information, I went from eating anything to vegetarian, to vegan, to raw vegan. And so now I'm going on my 24th year of being raw vegan, which
Wow.
means I eat fruits, vegetables, seeds, nuts, seaweeds, and sprouts. And that's my diet
phone down.
and lifestyle.
Shut your video off
I don't know how. How would I do
and and mute it.
I just don't know how.
Sorry.
That's okay. There's a video, there's a sign that says stop video, husband. Okay. So it's interesting that you go through this thinking about what are we going to eat? And if you think about society is in this capitalistic society, it's about profit. So they're making food, selling food that is highly profitable. You go into Whole Foods and 95% of what's in Whole Foods is shelf stable in a box or a can or in the freezer that has additives, preservatives, ascorbic acid, infinite other things, but it's not fresh. And when I think about how humanity and the animal kingdom progressed over these millions of years or billions of years, it's through fresh. Like we eat fresh. Like no one has a stove inside of their stomach. Like everything was fresh. And so 24 years ago, I made that decision to eat fresh, ripe, raw, organic fruits, vegetables, seeds, nuts, seaweeds, and sprouts. And I lived that way. And I lost the weight. I gained the energy. I gained mental clarity. And then about 5 years ago, I felt so much subtle energy forces that I no longer wanted to be in this quote unquote rat race. I didn't want to be doing New York, LA, San Francisco, and feeling all that energy. I wanted to be out in nature. So I moved into a little, it's funny now, but I moved into a little tent, a yurt that I had from Burning Man on 5 acres of land with a hot spring near Joshua Tree in the Mojave Desert. And that was like, I thought like life was going to be paradise for me. And I had a big cooler that I filled up in LA at Air One with all these incredible prepared gourmet, raw, vegan foods and my fresh fruit. And about 2 days into it, the cooler was going down. And so I went onto my iPhone and I was looking like vegan near me, organic near me. I went onto Happy Cow and it said no results. And I thought I was in the twilight zone. And for the first time in my life, I was living in a food desert. So there was nothing that I could eat. The closest restaurant was McDonald's, Taco Bell, Burger King, 7-Eleven, if I wanted any food. So that night, while I'm soaking in my hot spring, I'm looking at the galaxy, I'm seeing the Milky Way and beyond. I'm asking myself, did I come to the wrong place? Like maybe I should be in a noisy, loud city with horns honking, brake exhaust, toxic fumes, or could I make this work here? And so the first idea I had was like, okay, I'll just grow my own food. But I never grew anything in my whole life. And it takes weeks or months or years plus a green thumb in order to grow your own vegetables. And so I had to say, okay, that might be nice in the future, but what am I going to do today? Like, what am I going to do this week? So I got this, as I'm staring at the stars, they start to twinkle and then boom, it was sprouts. And every constellation was like a different sprout in my hallucination. There was alfalfa sprout there, mung bean sprout there, broccoli sprout there, radish sprout there, clover sprout there, flax there, chia there, sunflower seed there, peas there. And once I got that, I started to just process it. And the download was in 3 parts. Number 1 was that sprouts were vegetables and vegetables were a food. Where in the past, I looked at sprouts as a garnish or as a superfood or as a snack. And here I was saying, sprouts could be the center of my plate. like sprouts were vegetables. And then number two, sprouts were vitamins and minerals. And so when I did the research, turns out every benefit of the whole food plant-based diet can be derived from eating sprouts as vegetables. Every amino acid, every micronutrient, every phytonutrient, polyphenol, bioflavonoid, antioxidant, prebiotic, soluble, insoluble fiber, they're all in sprouts and in abundance. And then three, which I still like pinch myself when I think about this, sprouts were medicine. That there are more than 2,500 peer-reviewed published papers from the top academic authorities, Johns Hopkins University, on broccoli sprouts alone and how they could be used to detoxify benzene from the lungs, how they could be used to regulate insulin levels in diabetics, how they could be used for weight loss because they are high fiber, low calorie, low fat, and how they could be used to treat autism because the sulforaphane inside of the broccoli sprouts can actually create heat shock proteins. And when someone who's autistic is experiencing a fever similar to a heat shock protein, their symptoms of autism lessen. And then, and this is like, I don't talk about this too much on social media, but there's the anti-cancer chemoprotective properties of sprouts because they actually have these cruciferous vegetables are well known to be anti-cancer, right? Which cruciferous vegetables has the most anti-cancer properties? Broccoli. And what stage of broccoli is the most effective? Turns out broccoli sprouts. And so I went all in onto sprouts. And within the first month, I was basically exclusively just eating sprouts. In 1 cubic foot, I was growing enough food to satisfy, to satiate, to provide 2,000, 3,000 calories a day of sprouts, all my vegetables, and I became a happy camper. And that became the genesis of me writing the Sprout book. And so I wrote the book 5 years ago. It came out almost 3 years to the day. And so to answer Erin, and that was a long-winded way, right? 13 and a half minutes for me to get to this. What is a sprout? So seeds are the foundational component of all plant life on the planet. Seeds have a protective coating around them, like a shell on them and a casing. And inside of the seed, it's a complete living organism with an endosperm, an embryo, and this living organism has a life force within it. Very powerful, that life force, and that similar life force to that is within all of us. And in nature, seeds go into the ground, they germinate, they grow, they sprout, they grow into little vegetables, they grow into trees, they grow into bushes, they flower, they fruit, they replicate. And that's the circle of life for nature. Turns out that we can take these seeds and we could put them in a glass jar and we could soak them overnight. We can add water and we can trigger the germination process to occur in these dormant seeds. And within days, that seed will go through a metabolic metamorphosis similar to that of a caterpillar to a butterfly. And the seed will turn into a sprout, which is a vegetable, and it will grow. And it is magic. It is magic because when you take the seed and you take the water, it doesn't just absorb the water. It's growing new fibrous dry mass. Like there's something very quantum, very spiritual, very powerful that's occurring. And this is happening without soil, without sunshine, without fertilizer. So it's defying all laws of nature as we know them, that in order to grow plants, you need sun to do photosynthesis, you need fertilizer, you need other inputs. Well, it turns out sprouts can be grown with air and with water. So I'm going to take a breath so I don't pass out and let you all process that. And I'm turning it back over to Erin.
All right, so one thing I would like to know, because you said you didn't want to go back to the city, you didn't want to go back to the toxic fumes, but how long would you say it took you to get to that point? Because you went from eating pretty crappy to really just eating sprouts. And so everybody in the group, we're trying to bring more nutrition into our lives. And it's really hard to get over that hump. So how long did it take you, or did you just go cold turkey, or just get to the point where you're like, I'm fine, I don't never want to go back?
I mean, here's the thing. I've studied a lot of addiction, and I've studied smoking cessation, and I've never smoked. And one of the lies that society puts out there is that it's hard to quit smoking. It's really easy to quit smoking. You just decide, I don't want to smoke anymore, right? And it's really easy to choose to eat healthy. You just have to make a choice, and you have to understand, who the enemy is, right? And the enemy to eating healthy is salt, because salt makes everything taste good. Oil, it makes everything taste good. And sugar makes everything taste good. So if you are aware of the battlefield and you want to become your own general, you can win the battle right now. You don't need to ask anyone's permission. You can choose to win the battle right now. And I'm going to tell you who's your enemy. It's salt, it's oil, it's sugar, it's every single animal product: meat, chicken, fish, eggs, dairy, cheese. Those are your enemies. And my opinion, who are your friends? Fruits, vegetables, seaweeds, seeds, nuts, sprouts, flowers, fresh. Those are your friends.
But let's go back to while you're on the topic of sugar, because people, they associate sugar with fruit, and they say, I can't eat fruit because fruit's going to make me fat, and fruit's bad for me because it has sugar in it.
That's a lie. That's just a lie.
Right.
It's just a lie. There's a book called Mastering Diabetes, written by Cyrus and Robbie. It's a New York Times best-selling book. Okay. And in the book, both Robbie and Cyrus are type 1 diabetics, and they're fruitarians. They eat no animal product. They are raw vegan, as close to fruitarian as you could be. Maybe they'll eat some greens here and there, and their diabetes is under control, and they're type 1 diabetes. They have thousands of cases documented. And Cyrus is a PhD nutritional biochemist from Stanford. So he doesn't have like some mail order PhD, right? He's at one of the top academic universities in the world, peer reviewed, got his thesis in studying what nutrition for a diabetic. And the best nutrients for a diabetic are fruit, just period, hands down. So what happens is there's a huge difference between processed glucose and fructose versus fruit that has sugars along with antioxidants, along with fiber in it, along with other phytonutrients in it. It is it's totally like there's no comparison, except other than Erin in your life, I don't know anyone who is in your camp wanting to be healthy. So you're going to get so much information that is contrary to what will make you healthy. So at this point, I encourage you to think about, like, how much do you guys want to live? How much do you want to celebrate life? How much do you want to feel the best ever? Because that decision is within. It has nothing to do with anybody else. It's a decision that you can make. And, there's things that you could do on top of diet and nutrition. You could do your strength training. You could do your cardiovascular work. You could do ice baths. You could do sauna. You could take long walks. There's a lot of things that you could do. But just know that every single thing you put in your mouth is a life or death decision. It's a choice. And does anyone here, I see 9 beautiful people. Does anyone smoke in this call? Okay. So no, we have no smokers. Has anyone ever smoked in this call? One person we smoke. Let's see, Sharon, when did you stop smoking? Oh, Sharon, we can't hear you. Oh, there we go.
I stopped smoking about 35 years ago.
And what facilitated that genius decision to stop smoking?
I just, the hospital I was working at was going smoke free. And so everyone, you couldn't smoke indoors anymore. So I made a decision that I wasn't going to
Amazing.
side on the corner and smoke a cigarette. So I stopped. So
Okay.
it was a conscious decision.
So we now know, in this group, we now know unequivocally that smoking causes lung cancer, right? Do we all know that?
Yeah.
Okay. So what isn't, and I think that's out there because there's now a warning sticker on every pack of cigarettes, to that effect or something to that effect. What we don't have is society giving us the warning of processed sugar, of processed fat, processed oil, processed meat, right? Processed carbohydrates. Like, there's no warning. So what happens is, we have very, very good treatment for diabetes in this country, right? We can get someone who's diabetic. We can give them all sorts of insulin and blood thinners and diabetes medicine and keep them, diabetic for the rest of their lives until they get some complications, usually from the medications that they're on, et cetera. Or we can understand and take a stand in belief that it is very possible, right? And you look at Novak Djokovic,
Yes.
won Wimbledon, best male living tennis player, vegan, right? So you can't question, does anyone here play tennis? I get exhausted watching these guys play tennis. Tennis is so demanding, mentally, physically, and you burn more calories with your brain than with any other part of your body. Like, tennis is exhausting. So to be the best, not just good, but to be the best in the world as plant-based vegan should eliminate any sort of nonsense, madness that you need this other stuff, protein, blah, blah, blah. It's all garbage. So that's just an example. So I invite you all to watch the movie Game Changers, which is other high performance athletes, that are plant-based. It looks like you're all female, but on the male side, I saw some men running around in the background. A lot of the ED that comes is not from eating plants. Okay. It's from, circulatory, inflammatory, chronic illnesses. So here's the thing, you have this unique opportunity, where Erin is sharing information with you. I'm here now. We're exactly approaching the 30-minute mark. I would love to address any questions, any concerns, any like myths, lores, beliefs that you have that might be preventing you from living your best life. Because I'd love to see all of you get off this call totally unleashed, totally ready to like make some positive moves in your own lives.
I'm going to ask a question for somebody. Unless you guys have a question. Does anybody want to ask a question? Because I feel somebody in the group, and I'm not going to say names, is scared of carbohydrates.
Well, I have a question, but I can
Oh,
wait.
go ahead, Jean Marie.
You know me, I always have a question.
I love when you ask questions. Go ahead.
Oh, thank you. Well, so Doug, I'm very impressed, especially where you talked about the diabetes and they should be eating fruit. So my ex-husband's diabetic, and during COVID, I did his grocery shopping and I'd be buying cantaloupe for him and apples per his request. He eats a lot of salad, and I was always a little surprised. So it was interesting that you mentioned that. And when you talked about the sugar, so when I use my Fitness Pal and then I plug in one of my most favorite things, my smoothie bowl with pineapple, banana, mango, and then there goes my sugar number. And I'm like, oh no, I don't know if I can have these smoothie bowls anymore. So I really like what you said, that that's not the sugar that's going to harm me, because I don't eat any other sweets.
Yeah, I think the thing that will harm you is not the fruit, but it's the animal products that will create the body's ability to process the insulin. Like diabetes is an indication of insulin resistance. So if you're eating just fresh fruits and vegetables, you can eat all that you want until you're not hungry or you're full, like all that you want. As soon as like, there's a lot of like marketing behind like olive oil, right? Do you know what olive oil is in my view of olive oil?
What?
Lard.
It's junk food. You're taking a perfectly healthy olive that has fiber and phytonutrients in it, and you're stripping away all of the good stuff, and you're leaving just pure fat. And, I know that I like olives. I can eat 6 olives. If I'm really famished, I could eat 8 olives. But, in the old days, I could be pouring like 4 ounces, of olive oil into a dressing and marinating the salad and wondering like, what's going on? Like, why am I eating? And you have to understand how the brain works. Salt makes everything taste good, so you eat more of it, right? Oil not only makes things taste good, oil releases dopamine and serotonin in the brain that makes you want to eat more of it, because in historic evolution, we never knew where our food was coming from. So if we needed fat, we would eat fat. And if we found a source of fat, we would keep eating it so that we could fatten up for tomorrow's famine. But today, we have so much access to food that, we still have in the global world, we have 10,000 people dying every day of starvation, right? This is a fact. This is one of my missions in life, is to deal with the starvation. In the United States, we don't have people dying of starvation. We have people dying of diabetes, obesity, and heart disease.
Yep.
And we have it's one thing. Does everyone here have health insurance?
Yep.
Right. How many have been with the same health insurance provider for 20 years? So on average, people change your health provider every 3 years. So what does that mean? It means that they have no vested interest in preventive care. Because if they spent their money on trying to teach you prevention, you're going to leave anyway, it doesn't matter. So what they're trying to do is maximize the profit of their equation with, drugs, with minimum treatment, with copay. I mean, it's just so complicated the way their charade works. But the best thing that you could do is patient heal thyself. Take control. So, Jean Marie, if you like your smoothie bowls, you could live on smoothie bowls. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner, smoothie bowls, right? But if you have breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and then a hamburger or a piece of chicken, and chicken has better marketing, because it's white meat, not red meat, or fish is better because fish is, in my world, fish is meat without feet, and it's even more polluted. So all these different things have really good marketing. And so, like, I'm not selling you anything. I'm here. This is my way of giving back. Erin, you're not paying me, correct?
No, I'm not paying you.
Right. So, this is me, like, just from the grace of God, sharing 1 hour of my time, to help a group of people make better decisions about their life. But I just want you to know, I went as soon as I had and I didn't have a Doug in my life. There was no Doug diet for me to follow. So I was lost. So it took me 2 weeks to gather and garner enough information for me to make this like life-changing decision. If someone would have told me what I know now, boom, I would have made that decision right then and there, because everything then would have been self-sabotage.
Mm.
And, here's another book. Have you read Kelly Turner's book?
Which one is it? 'Cause I've heard of
Kelly
her.
Turner wrote Radical Remission.
Yes. Oh, yes. Well, see, I just want to mention, so my husband was diagnosed with a blood cancer 4 years ago. And he switched to whole food, raw vegan for 3 straight months. And we were
Yes.
seeing a natural doctor, and his IGF-1, that he couldn't even, the doctor couldn't even explain it, how his IGF-1 just leveled off. And he said, "What are you doing?" He said, "I just changed my diet." And so we never went back. We're vegan now. And that's why I want to promote more of this, because there are health benefits to vegan, raw vegan, whole food, plant-based. And that's really my mission.
Yeah. I mean, if you think about it, so, you can read the book yourself. It's a New York Times
Amazing.
bestselling book. But
Yeah.
the essence of the book is that there are thousands, if not tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of cases where, for whatever reason, someone diagnosed with stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, stage 4 cancer, and they don't want to get chemotherapy. They don't want to get radiation. They don't want to get surgery. So for whatever reason, maybe it's insurance, whatever, they pull out of the system and they go into remission. And no one is tracking these radical remissions. As a matter of fact, in the book, they talk about a woman who went to get chemotherapy and decided, like, she didn't want to lose her hair. She didn't want to be nauseous. She didn't want to do this. So she was going to pull out, but she would, cares about herself. So she was still going to check in with her oncologist. So she went back 3 months later to the oncologist for a checkup, and cancer was going down, down, down. And the doctor said, "Don't tell anybody." And she's like, "Well, what are you talking about?" "Well, we don't want to give people false hope, because the only approved methods of treating cancer are radiation, chemotherapy, and surgery. So we don't want to give people false hope." And turns out no one is tracking all the people who don't want radiation, chemotherapy, and surgery. And so they pulled back. Kelly was so interested in this. She got her PhD, did the research, tracked down all these people, and found out, like, there's enormous success in true healing of cancer without these aforementioned disease. And I'm not telling you what to do or what not to do, right? I'm just putting out things that have triggered to me. And this book came out 20 years after, I shifted my diet and saw that. But I can say that you guys, let's hear some questions.
What's the name of the book, please?
Radical Remissions, Kelly Turner.
Amazing book. All right, you guys.
There's another book, great book, Chris Beat Cancer.
Yes, Crispy.
And I did Chris's podcast. You can listen to me on Chris. And I want you to know, I wasn't as enthusiastic on my podcast with Chris as I am with you, because in private, intimate settings, I'm willing to be more of myself than in something that is going to be more replicated, because I just like to be balanced, my outside persona.
You can be yourself here. It sounds like you're being yourself.
Absolutely. Okay, what else we got? What do you think, ML?
So we have, I just want you to know, Dr. Arelli is a pathologist and she's a raw vegan for 7 years. I know she said, I don't know if she can hear me or not. She's working, so she's stepping
work.
in. Oh, there she is. Yeah, so she's a raw vegan. She's
Hi,
raw vegan.
Doug.
Hi, Ariel.
He sent me his book. You sent me your sprouting book. I'm so thankful for that. And thank you for everything you're doing. And I'm learning a lot from you. And I'm in Erin's program, and I'm trying to build muscle, losing fat. And for that, I need to modify my macros as a raw vegan. I'm struggling a little bit, but the sprouts are making a difference. So I have a question for you. I'm doing atsuki beans, lentils, and what else? Garbanzo beans as sprouted for my protein. What other beans do you think are good for this purpose?
Well, here's the thing, that all sprouts have amino acids that form proteins. Did we lose our Ellie?
Well,
No,
really,
I just muted myself and took the camera off.
Oh, okay.
I'm here.
Okay, yeah. Okay. So all sprouts have the amino acids to form proteins. So I think it's a myth to think that we need to have complete proteins with all 9 essential amino acids in one individual vegetable. I believe that if you have enough variety and you have enough calories, the body will form the complete proteins that you need. So the question, Aurelie, is, are you eating enough calories from the raw vegan diet? Because the stuff that you're eating could be very light in calories. So you actually want to make sure you're eating enough calories.
Yeah, I'm in this program called Body Recomposition, which is slightly a different approach. I'm totally with you about it's a myth, the protein we can build muscle, but what I'm trying to do right now is losing fat at the same time of gaining muscle. But for that, we need to increase our protein macros, modify a little bit. So I'm eating enough calories to sustain my muscle gains, but I'm trying at the same time to lose body fat. So that's a totally different scenario that I'm actually exploring as a raw vegan for 5 years. It may be like cognitive dissonance. It was for me. I couldn't believe it, but actually I'm seeing results. But that we can talk later if you want. But yeah, I'm eating enough calories for sure.
Okay, so what did you say is the issue for you, doctor?
Oh no, like I just want your recommendations in terms of, in addition to atsuki, lentils, and garbanzo sprouts, what other legumes do you think are good for sprouting, just to have more variety? Because
I would say you can do fava, and you could do green pea. If you look in the nutrition world, many of the plant-based proteins are coming from green pea. And also you can do chia. So chia on the label is not going to have a lot of protein on it, but chia was basically the protein source for the Mayans and the Aztecs. And so you could sprout chia or make your chia puddings and have a great source, of both energy as well as bioavailable amino acids to form the proteins.
Perfect. Thank you for those suggestions.
No, my pleasure.
All right, who else has a question? Come
So
on,
I
you go.
have a couple. So just in terms of getting that number of calories, then I'm assuming like the higher amounts of calories would come from the nuts in your
Well,
diet, like
Well, from the legumes, I eat very few nuts. So
Oh.
most of my like 1 cup of sprouted garbanzo beans is 200 plus calories and 20 grams of protein. So in sprouted garbanzo beans, and I can eat sprouted garbanzo beans. You could eat them on the 2nd or 3rd day. So they're very easy. You could put some nutritional yeast on them and you could just eat them, as a snack, just to get, some protein into the body.
okay. So these truly are like all sprouts that you're growing yourself, because I just went, while we were talking here, I went on the website for Amazon for Whole Foods, and it's 4 ounces of pea sprouts is $7.99, and
Yeah.
1.5 ounces of Super Bites microgreens is $5.99, which is why I look at them as a garnish.
Yeah. Well, look, I think the thing is, when you look at the sprouts on a macro level, you can buy, and if you go to like True Leaf Market site, you could buy a 35-pound bucket, 35 pounds for under $100. That's $3 a pound for raw seeds, right? And those will double or triple in volume. So you're basically getting organic vegetables at under $1 a pound.
Okay.
So very, very affordable. And they're fresh. And if we think about sprouts being small, like, alfalfa sprouts are the same seeds that form alfalfa hay. So if you think about what they're feeding to a horse, long strand, very dry, cellulose rich, us humans cannot eat that. We cannot digest that. But the alfalfa sprout is just bioavailable, tender, nutritious, crunchy, and we can absorb the nutrients from it. So it's the same, vegetable, just in the early stages. So the way I look at sprouts is almost like I'm looking at stem cells, young, powerful cells, young, powerful seeds, because as the vegetable matures, you get more roughage and you get more insoluble fiber, and it's harder to digest and process.
Okay. And then this is just one other a quick response, if you could, because this may be too far off track, but just like everything that you're talking about with like the seeds and the, like, just sort of like the quantum physics of it, what have you. Do you ever use gemotherapy, or maybe you've never had the need, but are you familiar with gemotherapy?
No.
Okay. So it's basically this, like, you buy these tinctures and it comes from the bud of these different plants. So it just sounds like it's based on the same principle.
Uh-oh.
All these, with botanicals, with herbs, with tinctures, and I love all that. My aversion is to these toxic chemicals that if you were to just Google on your own, the side effects or the warning levels, on a bag of chemotherapy, like, it's potent stuff. So if you look at something made from the essence of flowers and herbs and the botanicals, it's, I think it's very, very powerful. I tend to keep things really simple in my life, with movement, with breath and with plants.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, Brenda.
Morning, guys. This is your opportunity. What questions do you have? Michelle, you love this stuff.
Yeah, I'd like to know more about your growing process. I think you mentioned that you grow 2,000 calories a day in a 1 foot square space.
Yes.
And so what does that look like? How does that?
I have a dish rack. Right now I'm not in my house. I'm in, a different studio that I'm using for the recording, because the baby crying. But basically I use these 1/2 gallon jars So 6 or 8 half-gallon jars. I would say, Michelle, if you go on to my Instagram or my TikTok, you'll see my setup and my sprout garden, and it's just very clear and obvious, but what I'm doing. But basically, I have a dish rack with some jars, and I soak, and then I rinse, and I strain off the extra water in there, and I'm in a constant rotation where I'm consuming 1 or 2 jars every day, and then I'm replenishing and soaking. So I've got a whole mix of jars and seeds going, and I'm just using filtered water.
Nice. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Would you recommend a certain type of seed? I use for plants, I use seed savers.
I recommend organic seeds that were sold and tested for sprouting that would have good high germination rates and that have been tested for pathogens.
Perfect. Okay. Good.
Where do you typically find those?
I mean, there's literally, Jean Marie, there's no shortage today. Like
Okay.
when I was doing my early research 5 years ago, it was hard to find. Now, a simple Google search would be, if you guys want to sign up for my newsletter at thesproutbook.com, I send out resources and referrals there. And there's every day people are asking me, where do I get my jars? Where do I get my rack? Where do I get my seeds? And so all of that is just on my Doug Evans Instagram.
Okay.
Sounds like you guys have a lot to think about. Let me just say a show of hand. Did I do a good job explaining to you the nutritional power of sprouts?
Yes, definitely.
I'm
Okay.
sold. I only
So-
want to eat sprouts.
Yeah, you could become a sproutarian.
Yes.
You too can do it. And so I think that the fact that you signed up for Erin's program means you must want to live.
Mhm.
So does anyone still have any beliefs that they need to eat animal products?
Well, everybody here eats animal products except for me.
I kind of cut them out
Oh, you
since I
did?
met
Okay.
Erin. Yeah, I really don't eat them, except I was eating salmon. So now I'm not going to eat salmon because
But
it's meat with legs.
Yeah, so just so you know, Doug, I switched to being a vegan for ethical reasons, and then I researched all the health benefits. And I don't want to force anyone to do what they're not ready to do. Although I would love everyone to be plant-based, but I'm kind of getting to the point where I really want to start to promote more plant-based, but I just haven't got there yet. Because sometimes people look like I'm crazy, or they just don't want to work with me, and the first thing that people say as soon as they know that I'm vegan, well, I can't work with you because I have to be vegan. I'm like, no, you don't have to be. I'm just going to teach you to bring more health into your life.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think that, I became vegan originally for health reasons, right? And then, I became, I stayed vegan for health reasons. And then I learned about the environmental, aspect of it. It takes like 2,500 gallons of water to grow all of the grain over the months and years to fatten up the cow to then slaughter the cow, 2,500 gallons. And you can grow a pound of sprouts with 1 gallon of water. It's like 1 gallon of water versus 2,500 gallons of water. Like, that would be the shortest TED talk I could give, right? It's 1 minute. Like anything else would detract from that fact. So environmentally, there's no question that they're constantly clear cutting our rainforests in Brazil, in South America, in Peru, to grow, wheat, corn, and soy for cows for the meat industry. And if any of you think about the compassionate level, forgetting about the slaughter of the animals, because there's no such thing, in my opinion, of humane way of killing, right? You have a sentient being that wants to live, and they're taking the life away from it. And there may be more ethical ways of trying to do slaughter as opposed to like leaving them, in a cage this big and they give them a little bit more space. So they could be better ways of treating them. But at the end of the day, there's no humane way of killing, right? So that's a whole ethical conversation that I don't want to go down. Environmentally, it's very clear that the efficiency of growing and eating plants, which is a 1-to-1 ratio, where with animal products, it is a 1-to-10 ratio, that for every calorie that's grown, 10 calories go in to a feed product for growing, for fattening up the animal. So an animal is a highly inefficient mechanism of creating calories from plants. So it's using a lot of resources, but that's all aside. And so there's health, there's environment, there's ethical. The number one reason that keeps me vegan is how I feel. Because nothing feels better than feeling the best ever. And I can tell you that if you're eating these other inputs, they slow you down. And look, you're all over 40, right? You've heard about the 60s and the good vibes. Like, what do you think the vibrations are? We are all subtle energy forces, right? So you want good vibes, be in harmony with nature, spend time in silence and meditation, in movement, but everything that every cell in your body is constructed by air, by water, and by the nutritional inputs that you have. And the cleaner the nutrition, the cleaner the system and the flow will be.
That was perfectly said. That's exactly how I feel. So, and I think my husband, because he has a chronic cancer and he died. It is the reason why he's doing so well is because he's plant-based. And we blow away the doctors every time we go and visit because he is not as sick as most of the people, because we do not rely on all those things. We really rely on the food. It's just been absolutely amazing.
Well, and here's the thing I'm going to say is that the sooner you make the decision, the better your life will be. Because if you're clinging to this old way, they say, and I'm very close with a lot of cardiologists, a lot of medical doctors. I have a high school education, just so you know. I have no letters after my name whatsoever, maybe JD for juvenile delinquent. But basically, a lot of my friends are doctors. A lot of my advisors are doctors. And, you look in my book, I interviewed the top 10 medical professionals, not only vegan, like Dr. Josh Axe wrote the keto book, right? Dr. Mark Hyman, functional medicine. So all these people, but the thing they had in common was they love Sprouts. So what I can tell you is heart disease, when it occurs at age 50, was not an overnight disease. This was not like getting struck with lightning. The clogging of the arteries in the beginning of the heart disease began in the 20s and in the 30s. So the sooner you make the decision to stop the poisoning, to stop the inflammatory diet, then you're living and progressing in a healing method. So that's what, some people wait until they have the heart attack or they have, the stroke or they get diagnosed with the cancer, and then they make the change. The wise people, as soon as they get the information, that's when, boom, they make the decision and they change your life. And there's nothing stopping you. You can make that decision right now on this call. And you know what? I pray for all of you. I have no attachment to it. I may never see you again, and I'm not selling anything. So I just want every one of you to think about your life, your future, your family, your kids, your grandkids, your sisters, your brothers, your coworkers, your friends. They all love you. And this is an opportunity for you to take a stand for yourself.
This has been, I think, my favorite meeting so far.
Agreed.
Your
What do you
energy
guys
is
think?
absolutely fantastic. I absolutely love.
Well, thank you. And we're right on the hour.
We are right on the hour. Well, Doug, this
Okay.
has been amazing. Your energy is so inspiring. I want to be more healthy after listening to you. And I hope he inspired you guys to put more health into your life. And this is the reason why I'm doing this. You know, bringing these people in here to inspire all of you to bring more health into your life. So Doug, thank you so much. This was really, I think it was epic. I think it was awesome.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your kind words. I gave you my best. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
All right,
Doug.
everybody. Good night.
Okay, good night.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Good night.
Bye.
Thank you.